Welcome to the Westminster Presbyterian Church Podcast. I'm Pastor Steve Schaick, and I want to say how excited we are to share this week's sermon with you. If you feel encouraged by this message, we invite you to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss one of our weekly messages. Now, I invite you to hear the word of the Lord.
Well, thank you, Sam, and thank you all for being here today. I know a lot of our congregation is still traveling, so if you're listening from Jamaica, Tahiti, maybe even Minnesota, I'm not sure why you'd want to be there right now, but I'm grateful that you're here with us in one way or another. I love the epistle that Peter writes to the early church. The early church, little context, was being persecuted. It was going through some very, very difficult times. It cost people their lives to claim that they believed in Jesus and that they were following the way. And as Peter goes out to write a letter of guidance, an epistle of hope, he does so by grounding this faith, if you will, in literally thousands of years of making, of formation. This is not some new whim. This is not some new idea. This isn't some just a little burst of idea. This is a long-standing road, and the people who are participating in following Jesus are part of a long journey. A journey that has culminated now, at least for these people in the first century, and we, of course, continue even today. Hear now the word of the Lord. The prophets searched carefully and tried to learn about this salvation. They prophesied about the grace that was coming to you. The Spirit of Christ was in the prophets, telling in advance about the sufferings of Christ and about the glory that would follow those sufferings. The prophets tried to learn about the Spirit and what it was showing them when those things would happen and what the world would be like at that time. It was shown them that their service was not for themselves, but for you, when they told about the truths that you now heard. Those who preached the good news to you told you those things with the help of the Holy Spirit who was sent from heaven, things into which angels desire to look. So prepare, Peter says, prepare your minds for service and have self-control. All your hope should be for the gift of grace that will be yours when Jesus Christ is shown you. And now that you are obedient children of God, do not live as you did in the past. You did not understand, so you did the evil things you wanted. But be holy in all you do, just as God, the one who called you, is holy. For it is written in the Scriptures, you must be holy, because I am holy. This, my friends, is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You may know that today is Epiphany Sunday, and I kind of like Epiphany. Epiphany is one of these moments in the church calendar, if you will, that's kind of glorious, it's kind of wondrous, but it's also a little messy. And it kind of fits, I think, who I am and maybe who we are. You see, these stargazing, apparently pretty wealthy folks who somehow learn that Jesus has been born, the Messiah has been born, make their way now to Bethlehem. They're not exactly sure where they're going, and one of the first surprises of this passage is that grown men actually ask for directions. And so they don't ask someone on the street. They go right to Herod's office. Herod, of course, is the king that was appointed by Rome to rule this entire area. Herod was king, and everybody knew it. And what do the wise men do? They show up in Herod's office, and say, hey, Herod, how about you help us discover where the real king of the Jews resides? Now, this could not have gone over very well for Herod. You see, Herod knew in his heart that he was king, and Herod was appointed by Rome to be king. And so there's either one of two options that are being played out right here. One is that Herod has been replaced by somebody else in Rome, and Rome just didn't bother to tell him, or there's an insurrection about to happen, and a new king would soon dominate the land. As I said, this is a rather messy, wondrous story, and I love it dearly. But I'm grateful also that the term epiphany has kind of morphed over the years into referring to this idea of discovery, of awakening, or an encounter with something extraordinary. And I got to tell you, friends, that my epiphany this last year and a half has been you. About 18 months ago, we kicked off this whole thing with some Westminster Olympics, and Sam let me carry the torch, and had a little trouble lighting the eternal flame that was up at the top of the hill, but it finally lit, and Scott and others got it going. We were off to a great start. You showed me, next slide, you showed me just pure joy, how this congregation can get together, and even in the hot blazing sun, we had fun, and we played silly games. You then got down to work when Helene devastated much of western North Carolina. You loaded trucks full of water and supplies, and you did so in the love of Christ. And then you taught me and reminded me of the privilege it is to be a pastor. You showed me how to love young neighbors and building Superman houses for unsuspecting little boys. You demonstrated Christ's love in building big houses for big people who are in need of a shelter other than just the back seat of a car or some place that they had been calling home. You supported Denise and I as we traveled on a pilgrimage to Scotland, and particularly Iona, as we learned about the history of the Presbyterian Church and some of the roots of our very own faith. You allowed us to pretend we were famous golfers for a moment on the St. Andrew's Old Course, and so we got to stand on the bridge, and that too was a gift you gave us. You inspired us in countless ways, and I watched you build faith in little ones during VBS as people came together to create stories and to create meaning and purpose and a rooting, if you will, for our faith. You even let me play Joseph. I got to be Joe, and have a lot of little friends who have a hard time recognizing me as anything other than Joseph. You showed me what it's like to dream big, like this the stage. Your generosity and love made music happen, and it just it was a way of bringing together our neighbors and our community in this beautiful way. You supported our explorations. This was in Greece. You prayed that our marriage would survive a couple of weeks on a tandem, and it did. You embraced creative worship. And your staff never stopped sharing their gifts with me and with others. And speaking of staff, I've worked with some amazing staffs over the years, including top-notch Pentagon officials and others throughout my career, but never have I been associated with a more gifted, beautiful staff than this one. Pastor Sam, Pastor Cindy, Pastor Butch, Catherine, Lynn, Clint, Laura, and the amazing musicians that you lead. Brad, Scott, Lucy, Sally, Evelyn down in the nursery that hardly anybody sees, but she does God's work every Sunday. Meredith, Jonathan, Emily, Melanie, and Barry. And of course, his crack sound booth team back here, Evo, Danielle, Mackenzie, Faith, Ethan, and Owen. Gosh, I can't tell you what a privilege it's been to work with each and every one of you. In addition, we've got an amazing session, and I inherited from Ernie Thompson an amazingly well-functioning, strong session. And of course, Larry Hooker was no small piece of that as our clerk. And I gotta give a shout out to our transition team, led by Janet Hurd, and our pastor nominating committee, led by Judy and Jim, and to all the committed volunteers, too numerous to name or to count. Thank you for being my epiphany, my discovery of something extraordinary. And as I prepare to offer one more benediction, one more reminder of God's fathomless grace poured out over you, please know that Denise and I have counted it a pure joy to serve with you this last year and a half. And as you prepare to welcome your next senior pastor, please know that I'm incredibly excited about the energy, inspiration, and leadership of Betsy. She knows, and I hope you do as well, that this is an extraordinary fellowship of believers. There's churches out there all over the place that wish they were as healthy and vibrant and active and loving as you all are. You're an incredible fellowship of Jesus-following, grace-embracing, world-healing people. And just as a little side note, I want to remind you of the 9th Beatitude. You all know the 9th Beatitude? As you prepare to welcome Betsy here, remember the 9th Beatitude. It says, "Blessed are those who wear their name tag, for they shall be remembered." Trust me, Betsy will be forever indebted to you. You know, soon after I was baptized as a little boy, a little child, several weeks old, I'm not recalling all the details here, but I'm pretty sure it was about then that my parents looked at me and said, "Okay, Steve, you now are a child of God, but you are also a lifelong Green Bay Packer fan." And just happens to be in this time and era, the coach of the Green Bay Packers, the coach and high priest of the Packers, was a guy by the name of Vince Lombardi. And Vince Lombardi has been quoted in business settings as well as in churches and almost every gathering of people anywhere for being famous for saying the key to winning, the key to success, the key to whatever it is that you are endeavoring to accomplish, the key is blocking and tackling. Now, these are some of the most fundamental aspects of football. And you got to know that it's not real glorious either. Everybody wants to see the quarterback throw this amazing pass with precision and a wide receiver making a one-handed catch. Everybody wants these, but the games, according to Vince Lombardi, the championships are always won not by all this fancy stuff, but by blocking and tackling, the basics of football. And as I put a bow on my time here as your senior pastor, I want to share with you what I believe to be is the blocking and tackling of the Christian faith. Now, this is not real glorious. This is not real maybe exciting for some of you, but Peter says this in his passage that we read today, and I believe this to be the blocking and tackling of the Christian faith. It's a sermon I give to myself almost every day, and I pray that it is one that that leads each of us, ekes each of us a little closer to a purity of followership of Jesus Christ. Peter says, prepare your minds for service and have self-control. Thank you, Sam. Prepare your minds for service. It's interesting, Peter doesn't say prepare your heart for service. He says prepare your mind for service. See, I don't know about you, but my heart is all over the map. My heart can chase something and follow something, get excited about something, and just, all over the place. But my mind, I have some control over. My mind, I can do something about. Because from the mind flows the contents of our heart. So Peter makes it clear that in the midst of all this chaos, in the midst of all that's going on, Peter says, remind and prepare yourselves, your mind, prepare your mind, he says, for service and have self-control. It's a verse that I have this love-hate relationship with. But it's also a verse that is as simple as it is difficult. A verse that I believe represents the blocking and tackling of the Christian faith. One that I know you do very, very well. One that I leave you with as my final message. And so my prayer for you as you move into this new phase of Westminster Presbyterian church life, my prayer for you is that each of us continue to make tiny steps of progress toward the goal of service and self-control. My prayer for you is you continue with myself to make steps toward this goal, the blocking and tackling of the Christian life, to the glory of God. Amen.
We hope you enjoyed today's message from Westminster Presbyterian Church in Greensboro, North Carolina. If you would like more information about our church, visit us at westpreschurch.org. That's westpreschurch.org. Help us share the love and grace of Jesus Christ by sharing this podcast with your friends. We hope you join us again soon.